And now we're official. So it is Monday, June 23rd, 2025, 7:30 p.m. And I call this meeting of the Needham Design Review Board to order. I am the board chair, Mark Glusing. I would like to confirm that members and applicants are present and can be heard. So when I call your name, please respond. Steve Dornbush.
Here.
Susan Upton.
Here.
And Felix Zemmel.
Here.
Also attending is our town staff, Lisa Lichman. Applicants, if someone from your group could respond, please. 6 Brook Road, Ace of Diamonds, Tom.
Tom here from Fast Signs.
Okay, and 59 East Militia Heights.
Anne Marie Badrois, President and CEO of the Charles River Center.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to this open meeting of the Needham Design Review Board, which is being conducted remotely consistent with state orders. The orders allow public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Needham Design Review Board is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, the Design Review Board page, identifying how the public may join. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this board are available on the town's website. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. This meeting is broadcast to the town's YouTube channel and also via Zoom and is being recorded for publication, later viewing, and administrative purposes. Please be aware that other people can see you. Take care not to screen share your computer unless the chair approves. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. I'd like to review the remote meeting procedures for tonight's meeting. I will introduce each applicant on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will take questions or comments from the Design Review Board members. After discussion, any vote will be by roll call vote. The building department requires electronic submission of building permit applications. A copy of your application, stamped and noted for the type of approval that you receive, will be emailed to you by DRB support staff. That can then be attached to any of your other applications. We will start with the first item on the agenda, and that is 6 Brook Road, Fast Signs presenting Ace of Diamonds. So go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, so we are representing Ace of Diamonds, which is going to be a softball training facility moving in to where Chili Bears used to be. And I'm going to send a request to share. Let's start. There we go. Right. So this, and we checked with Joe beforehand regarding a special permit. He said it could move forward as presented without a special permit. That's due to the quantity of signs. So we are calling this one the primary sign, similar to the last few that I've submitted recently, but an aluminum bar frame sign with vinyl graphics, no 3D, mounting with the normal galvanized L brackets on the sides, not showing. Size of both of them are the 96 by 48, matching same size as the Chili Bears. I think I mentioned this to Elisa, but they look a little different in this view here due to the angle of my camera, but they are the same size as the Chili Bears, 8 wide, 4 tall. And this is the quote unquote secondary sign on the other side of the building, which shows here. And then the front door is right over here. And some other ones in the area, again, pretty much all aluminum bar frames except for these two, but matching pretty much everyone in that loop. And again, I'm calling this location here the primary. and the secondary, but again, just matching where Chili Bears has their or had their two signs previously. And that's pretty much all I got. Open it up to questions.
All right, thank you. Why don't we start with Steve?
I guess no lighting of any type, is that correct?
No, what? Sorry.
No lights are.
No. Well,
illuminated?
no new lights. There is existing
That overhead, yeah.
light on this one here.
Actually, no, I don't have any questions.
Susan?
Susan, you're muted, I think.
No questions either.
Felix?
So I misunderstood what the answer to Steve's question was. So is that one sign that you showed already internally illuminated? It's-
Externally,
Oh, externally.
it has
Oh, I see that.
lighting
Okay.
strips on. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't have other questions. I just had a comment that I like this one a lot more than the prior one because the prior one had so much white. And I've kind of made a reputation of not loving too much white on signs. So I like this one.
We know that in Needham. And actually, the first design she sent me had an all white background, and these gray triangle things were black. But so as soon as I saw that, I asked her if she'd be open to the other color background, and she came up with this.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any
Thank you.
other comments or feedback.
Okay, yeah, I think it looks good and, you know, the issue with white on dark backgrounds, Felix has been a good champion, but we've been an advocate of that approach for a long time. So he's continuing a good tradition. Yeah, I did look at this initially, just wondering whether you would fall into special permit category. I don't remember how Chili Bear proceeded, but you are on the corner of two streets. I'm assuming that while the signs aren't necessarily directly on those adjoining streets, if the building commissioner's comfortable with it, that's really his final call. So I think they look good, and hope they have good luck in there. So I have no other questions or comments.
Awesome.
So I would take a motion to approve the signs for Ace of Diamonds at Six Brook Road as submitted.
I'd like to make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and we come to the vote. Felix,
Aye.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and the chair is yes. All right, thank you,
Awesome.
Tom.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
The next item on the agenda is listed as an informal discussion of the 40B comprehensive permit project located at Charles River Heights, 59 East Militia Heights Drive. This will be reviewed by the ZBA for final approval, is my understanding. We typically will write a memo to them regarding our review, but this was, at least in some level of discussion, this was proposed as an informal discussion. So we're just going to let you show us what you're doing and assume that you're looking just for some feedback before you make your final decisions and applications.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Take it away.
All right, good.
Share
Phil,
my
you
screen.
wanna- Yeah,
Yep,
you want to
I'll
share
share
your
my
screen? So-
screen and you go ahead,
Yep.
Anne Marie.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to present tonight. As you heard in the beginning, my name is Anne Marie Bajwa. I'm the president and CEO of the Charles River Center in Needham. We are proposing a thoughtfully designed affordable housing development we've called the Charles River Heights, as you heard, on East Militia Heights Road. or Drive, actually, I think it is, in Needham. It's where the old Army barracks used to be. And we have developed a mission-based, inclusive, supportive housing project, if you will, where there will, the mission of the Charles River Center is all about community and all about being included in the community in which you live. So this is a mission-driven development whereby roughly half of the units will be designated for the clientele that the Charles River Center serves. And the other half of the units will be for the general community with various, income abilities. So what makes this unique is that it's completely integrated. It's about a 50-50 integration. And the folks that we support will be living there independently, but the Charles River Center will be providing them with intermittent, flexible staff supports to help them be successful living on their own. Such things as, job development, job coaching, job placement, peer supports, various health monitoring mechanisms remotely and in person. So the things that you would imagine that our folks would need that's unique to them and that they would need intermittent, so less than 30 hours a week of staff presence for each person to be successful living on their own. And what makes this unique, again, is that it's completely integrated, and we really have thoughtfully designed the project to be inclusive of the Needham community in every place that we can. And we'll get into the design. I have some really great partners we've been working with, and Phil Crean is from the Planning Office of Urban Affairs. He's a co-developer and a project manager, and he will get into the specifics of the design. We also have Jay Szymanski from TAT, the architect, and we have Rebecca Bashand, I think I'm saying that right, is the landscape architect. Very talented people. So you'll meet them tonight. So Phil, if you can take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Anne Marie. So just to lay out the rest of the presentation that we have, we're going to talk about the schedule, talk a little bit about the programming, and then Jay and Rebecca are going to talk about walk through our proposed site plan and floor plans, as well as our some proposed landscaping. As was just mentioned, this is going to be proposed as a friendly. I'll call it a collaborative 40B because it's not going to technically go through the LIP process because this is a low-income housing tax credit project. So it will go through a different program. But our approach has been to be as collaborative with the town as possible. And it's been so far it's been I think a really good partnership. We've had some strong support in Needham. We were hit a few big milestones last month in getting a CPA funding commitment from the town approved by town meeting, and then a support letter from the select board, which are two big items that we'll need as part of our project eligibility letter application. So just in terms of our timeline, this month we've met with the planning board last week, and the week prior to that we met with town staff, and now we're informally discussing the project with this board, and we'll be submitting our project eligibility letter application to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities in the next couple of weeks. And that process takes about 4 months. Once it gets there, once we submit that application, there'll be a comment period for the town for all boards and staff to submit comments to the state, as well as a site visit. As part of this, the EOHLC's review, there'll be an appraisal, and that's where the time for their review will really takes up a lot of it. So we anticipate receiving our project eligibility letter sometime in probably after Labor Day in mid-September, And then we would then put together our comprehensive permit application and submit that to the zoning board in October. We know that after, we know that after that we'll be presenting again to this board a bit more formally. But our goal is to, as mentioned, to introduce the project and get some initial, if there's any initial comments or thoughts that we can start working on now, that would be helpful for us. So when we get down to the fall, maybe we're just looking at some smaller details. And this timeline is driven by the Executive Office Housing and Livable Communities funding rounds that are annual. They take place typically in November. There's a pre-application in November, and then the full application is in the fall, February of the next year. They haven't been announced yet, but that's been the case the past couple of years. So to just big picture, what we're proposing is 86 affordable units of housing, half of which will be set aside for Charles River Center clients, and 5 units of those will be staff. Those individuals will come to the property through a closed referral system through DDS. And as Anne Marie mentioned, those individuals will have will require about 30% of staff time. Those units will also be handicap accessible. The whole building will be visitable, and then some of the really exciting parts are to bring the community to the building. We have a 4,400 square foot community room that we're going to open up and will be available to members of the community groups, the town, for meetings, or if folks want to enjoy some of the programming that Charles River Center provides. I think they're envisioning cooking classes or that sort of program at the community room that would be open to the town and just residents to come by. There's also great, if you've ever been up in that site, there's a lot of walking trails. So we're thinking of ways to connect those trails to our site to get for an amenity for our residents, but to also get residents to be walking through there. We want the site to be active and for people to come up and interact with our residents. So what we're proposing is four buildings. One 3-story building, which will house the majority of the units with the common amenity spaces. There will be 3 single-story structures as you enter the property, which will each contain 6 units with some amenity spaces. It's to create that. The idea was to create this community feel, and to kind of step up as you enter into the site. We're proposing 61 parking spaces. That's about 1-to-1 for the affordable household units. That's typically what we see in our properties, and then a little less than half of parking space per CRC unit. Those households typically rely on vehicles less so than 1-to-1. We're also discussing with North Hill about a partnership around a shuttle service that would get folks to appointments, connect them to the MBTA, because there's not a bus stop in the vicinity. But if we can get a shuttle service where we can make it more convenient for people to get into town or to their appointments, that's something we're actively talking about right now with North Hill. There'll be a community room. I mentioned the community room. All 4 buildings will be designed to achieve passive house. So that means all electric appliances, so there'll be no fossil fuels on site. And we're very, very certain that there'll be a really good sun in that area, so we'll be able to generate some on-site renewable energy. I'm going to turn it over to Jay Szymanski, who's our architect, and he'll walk through the site plan. Jay? Can people hear Jay?
Mm-mm.
I heard him for a minute.
Sure.
It's always the earbuds, right? They're always like, if I don't close the little box when I'm coming, that it all
So
falls apart.
I can talk a little bit about where the site is located while Jay's getting reconnected here. So this is our site here. This was purchased back by CRC from the U.S. Army back in 2023. It was single family homes that were for active duty personnel. They purchased the site. CRC's done a little bit of site work and demoing those single families. It's a relatively open site now. There's some driveways that have been left behind, but those for the most part, we're going to be removing those.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm going to skip this part, Jay, unless you have anything else to add, and we can get to the good stuff.
No, you did great. Thanks, Phil.
All right, thanks.
My apologies. Again, my name is Jason Mansky. I'm a principal at TAT. We're the architects, and obviously having some technical difficulties. But so Phil walked you through the existing conditions. This is our proposed site plan. So you'll see our main entrance is off of East Militia Drive. On the left side of this image, as you enter to the site, there are 3 single-story buildings labeled B, C, and D. They're all identical in plan. They're just oriented in different ways on the site. Along with those is their associated parking spaces for each one. As you continue further into the site, you come to a oval-shaped turnaround space, and that provides the drop-off visitor parking and also accessible parking for Building A. If you were to continue around the drive, it becomes now a one-way vehicular circulation around the rear of Building A. So on the back side is parking primarily for the residents of Building A, and then you'd sweep around sort of the top of the site plan one way heading out to the Building B, the smaller building. Next slide. So this is a closer up view of the 3 one-story buildings, and they all have the same program, and that is they have 6 studio apartment units and then a shared common living space. So the 6 studio units have their own private bathroom, their own small kitchen space, and then in the shared common area, there's a larger full-service kitchen, a living room area, a dining room area, and some general seating. So folks have the option to have their own sort of private space, but also share in the community with their other residents that they live with. Each of these buildings also has its own private patio in the rear. And again, parking associated with each one. Next slide, please. So this is the ground floor of Building A. So it's generally a U-shaped plan with that sort of tab off to the left. That tab is the roughly 4,000 square foot community room that Phil mentioned. And that's really sort of front and center on the site, and you'll see it in some of the renderings that we get to. But here you can see the drop-off area, the main entry into both the community room and also into the building itself, where you'll have a lobby space, the mail and package, management office, and then continuing deeper into the building, a small lounge space that provides access to the courtyard beyond. On the top of this image, you'll see a cluster of units that are outlined in red. So those are 5 one-bedroom apartments for CRC clientele, and a community room that's associated with those. So that's kind of a pod of units that has a community room, again, very similar to the one-story buildings that we just looked at. On the lower wing, you'll see a similar arrangement with 5 studio units, and then again, a shared community space. And then the balance of this floor are 1- and 2-bedroom apartment units. Next slide. So this is now the second floor, very similar arrangement, except that above the community room are apartments. And then again, the top wing and the bottom wing are CRC sort of pods of units. Next slide. This is the third floor. Again, very similar. They pretty much stack. The bottom pod of studio units continue up to the third floor, but that top wing reverts to typical one-bedroom units on the third floor. Next slide. So these are just some three-dimensional views looking at the site. So this is an aerial view looking at the sort of arrival to the site. In the foreground, you'll see the 3 one-story buildings. And then in the background, you'll see the 3-story building. The community room there on the ground floor is lit. It has a lot of fenestration there. Again, that really wants to be the hub of the whole community. Next slide. So we drop down to pedestrian level, looking at the one-story buildings on the left and the right, and straight in the middle of that, in the center of the image, is the 3-story building, again with the community room as the kind of focal point of the drive as you enter into the site. The one-story buildings are clad with a combination of shake siding, and then it's hard to see in this slide, but in some of the following slides, we'll see that the middle portion or the common area is clad with standing seam metal. These are meant to have kind of a residential feel, a smaller scale. You'll see the dormers that pop up, one above each of the living space of those studio units. Next slide. So a little bit closer in view of building A. Again, community space on the ground floor, lots of glass, really to connect the outside with the inside. Here we're using similar materials from the one-story building, but using them in sort of slightly different ways. So it's the same palette of materials. That standing seam metal siding is wrapping that sort of curved wing that wraps into the entry of the building, which is in the middle of this slide. And then we're using, again, some of the shake siding that we're using on the one-story buildings. Next slide. This is actually an older version of the previous.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go.
Sorry.
So now we're around to the rear of building A, looking into that courtyard. So again, this is where most of the residents will park. So we'll have a resident entry on the back of the building. And again, those 2 wings coming out wrapped with the standing seam metal, and then dropping down to slightly lower wings that are clad in the sort of a shake siding. And you'll see some of the window patterns that are, again, borrowed from the one-story buildings reappear on the far left of this image. Some of those sort of horizontal strip windows that we're using on the studio units, again, they reappear here because we have those same units in the 3-story building. Next slide. This is again a closer up view of the one-story buildings. You see that center common area clad in the standing seam metal. The common entrance right in the middle of this slide, and then the 2 wings on either side with the studio units. Next slide. So this image is actually from the back of the one-story building. So you get a sense of, we were looking at the more public face before. Now this is the backside, which has a much more private feel, much quieter, sort of nestled into the trees. They each, again, have their own outdoor living space, patio space, and then some shared outdoor space. And you can see that middle shared volume sort of popping through with a lot of glass, again, to provide that common area to the outside space. Maybe a little difficult to see here, but we did add some screening for HVAC units that will be on the roof. On this backside, you'll see kind of a wood tone slat screening that wraps those HVAC units on the roof. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rebecca, our landscape architect, to walk through the landscape plan.
Sorry, now I have to find my unmute button. Thank you, Jay. As everyone has said, my name is Rebecca Vachon. I'm a landscape architect with my own practice, and I've been working with planning office for what feels like forever with TAT, and I'm excited about joining this team with CRC. And really, the site, it was a beautiful drive through for me and walk through the other day, where just checking out all the existing trees and the campus overall. And I think our goal with this portion of the site is really to integrate the parcel into a campus feeling with tree-lined entry streets, similar to North Hill Drives, zoning compliant planting and screening in the parking lots and interior driveways, while maintaining as many existing trees as we can. Pending an arborist, sadly, I'm not actually trained as an arborist, so they're still green out there, so I think they're alive. But as we get into detailed grading and things, we might have more impacts than we'd like, but we'll definitely be building a more thorough replacement plan as we get into those details. There's along the perimeter of the site, as you can tell from the renderings, it's pretty heavily wooded. So we will, as we're kind of at the top of the hill, we'll be adding some retaining walls to try to maximize the tree retention along the edges. I did notice some invasive plant species like bittersweet out there, so we'll be removing that and revegetating with native species. And then if you see this blue line in the bottom left-hand corner of the site, that's our Conservation Commission jurisdiction. It was noted earlier, there's a driveway in there. You can kind of see a little bit darker shading. We'll be removing that and revegetating, but otherwise we're hoping to limit the work in that area to just some site grading and revegetation and maybe some additional plantings for screening to give a better sense of privacy to that building deed. And as we dive deeper and develop a planting plan and materials palette, we'll really use native, drought tolerant, low maintenance plant species, really trying to be inclusive of the oak, maple, and pine trees that are existing on this portion of the site. There's a lot of really interesting low vegetation. I think there's some perennials and things left over from when there was housing here. So we'll, get creative there, but really trying to keep it as easy as possible for people to maintain. And then I know residents sometimes like to add their own things in there, especially along those back patios, I think. And then with the programming, Jay kind of touched on, there's that great back courtyard. We'll be adding foundation plantings along the buildings, screening seating areas, looking at a walking loop. You can see there are a lot of sidewalks already proposed on this side. I think site grading existing is going to be a little bit of a challenge to connect over to North Hill, but the trails over there were so nice. I think it would be great if we could take advantage of that with some sort of walking system, especially where we do want to have the shared shuttle service. That courtyard behind Building A, I think is going to be a great opportunity for this site to have events, dining, maybe horticultural therapy, sensory garden type of things, which is actually part of my background and training. So I think we'd really like to integrate that, especially for this population. And any other programs that are typical of the Charles River Center. These residences always end up with programming I didn't quite envision. So we just try to make it as inclusive and flexible as possible, a mix of hardscape and plantings, but just give them a great outdoor space. And if we get the next slide, I think we'll be looking at lighting. Yes. So there's a mix of lighting on the site now. You can see on the bottom is Dwight Street, and it's just some existing Cobra heads. I believe that's what was on the right of way of the military housing. Militia Heights, there's some broken old Cobra heads there now. But we did look through North Hill. There's a couple of little, I always call them Saturn lights with the little rings around them. There's a gooseneck style up there. And if we go to the next one, I was inspired, there we go, you can see the Saturn in the middle. The one on the left, I was really liking the sconces that are in TAT's renderings. So I kind of like this family that goes from bollard to pole height. But, we could be more inspired by the existing lights on the North Hill campus, maybe a little more modern flair. It looked like the bollard lights maybe have been discontinued. I didn't show those, but our engineer managed to get me some inside info this afternoon. So I think, we might be looking to modernize it a bit, but everything will be dark sky compliant, full cutoff, probably a warm color temperature. To just really sensitively light the site. It's not meant to be Fenway Park, it's meant to be really residential scale. And, we know we're at the top of the hill, so we'll be adding plantings and screening as we need it. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Then that's that ends our presentation. So if there's any questions or comments, we're happy to take them.
All right, thank you. Felix, do you want to start? Any questions for them or comments about what they're proposing at this time?
I mean, I've been following this project a bit for a while, so I don't really have any comments on it. I think it's very much filling a need in the area. I think the location for it is great, and I'm in full support of this concept.
All right, thank you. Steve?
Like Felix, I've been following it a little bit, and I am very supportive of it with the housing crisis in this part of the country, and especially for this population. I think it's wonderful that this is coming to Needham, and I really landscape architecture and greenery isn't really my area, so I don't have any questions. I hopefully leave that to the experts. And it looks, the architecture looks very inviting. So no questions.
Okay, Susan?
I think it's a lovely project. I happen to live down the hill from it, and I take a lot of walks in this area, and I have a family member at North Hill. I was wondering if I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but the landscape architect, is it Rebecca?
Yes,
I don't have my gallery. Yeah.
yes.
I was wondering, I love that you've thought about programming and activities and stuff, and I heard it's not very visual in the photos yet, but I was wondering what kinds of activities you were planning and where they might be going.
I think the majority of a larger scale programming or more formal programming will happen in that courtyard behind building A. But since each of the smaller buildings does have a patio and some outdoor seating area and just is really kind of lovely and facing out to those woods, I think, you'll have a lot of passive recreation, lawn games and things like that happening in those areas around the perimeter. But at building A, I think that's with more structured programming that maybe Anne-Marie can speak to as well, of what they've been doing at some of their other facilities. I've seen everything from, cornhole basics, the family's over and we have the grandkids running around, to mock weddings, dog shows, barbecues, all kinds of things that I never anticipated. So that's why we tend to give like there'll probably be a walking loop. We do like to make things kind of not necessarily circular, but no dead ends, things like that, so that you might be able to connect to the rest of the campus from there. But then, yeah, really just some areas for seating. We'll provide some shade, likely to be tables out there for dining. There's so much great interior community and gathering space as well. I think there's going to be kind of a mix of different types of programming. So this might be for some of the larger scale things you wouldn't do indoors or in a community room, rather than just kind of seating for dining and things like that. But
I know that they have a really lovely and well-used community raised gardens over at North Hill that
yeah.
are always booked and always full. And I'm wondering, is there a plan to sort of try and mix those two communities or share things between them?
We haven't spoken directly about that with the folks at North Hill, but I will tell you that by and large, my clientele loves gardening, loves it. And many of our group homes in the community have raised garden beds, where folks can grow flowers as well as vegetables. And just down Dwight Road is a greenhouse that the Needham Community Farm uses to start their seedlings every year. And then we also have used it for flowers and vegetables. So there's lots of opportunity for things like that.
Oh, that's great because I can see that being very successful here if it's done well.
Yeah, I think we have lots of great areas and opportunity to tie that in as well.
I don't really have any other questions, but I do think it's really lovely and well needed, and I'm glad to see that there is programming, and like everyone else, that it's coming to Needham and not far from me.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Susan. Yeah, I would compliment you on the building designs. I think they, having a sort of residential scale as you first enter the site is helpful for the transition from what used to be there. They're interesting buildings. They've got not totally straightforward traditional geometries, and I think using that gabled community space as an intersector between the two wings works really well. And I like the material mix and the colors, so they're not so homogeneous, but they're also not sort of tough transitions to handle. So I think that those were very well done. And then switching them over to the larger building, I think they are materials that are often can be used on a larger building, but again, you've done it in a nice way to break it up. But I especially think the community spaces being more daylit, having more glazing is going to be a very helpful element and a nice element to the site. You'll sort of help identify where the public space, the more public spaces are for visitors. And I think, I think it just works really well. And I appreciate, it's very early in the planting, but we appreciate the concepts and the direction that you're talking about going. One of the things that we struggle with less on really multifamily buildings and commercial buildings is the amount of lawn that people often put in to start. And we encourage less of that, more from a maintenance standpoint and watering issues. But your particular use and with the patios in the back of the studio buildings, they probably actually will have some need for lawn, and it would be a positive for them to, as you said, play lawn games and some other things. So, I think that to the degree that you can define those areas, I think that would be helpful as we go forward. And then when you're in places like along the drive that goes to the parking lot behind Building A, maybe that's a different kind of landscaped edge and not a lawn, but could be something less maintenance intensive and water use. I too live down the hill, but down the hill the other way. So I'm on McIntosh Avenue, just a little bit off of the picture of the site plan that you proposed. But when my son was little, we would walk through the woods down here, and then there was a trail sort of along the service road on the backside to North Hill, and it went through the woods and around that end of the point, sort of just below that parking lot in the rear of Building A. And there was a bench, and you could look out and look at the TV towers. So, and then it continued on around. This was before the Charles River Center expanded up there. And you could walk over to the North Hills little croquet course. I forget exactly where that was because they've built on that since. But it's a lovely hillside. I think the comments from neighbors as you go forward would be to be careful about the site lighting. I appreciate the fact that you put the lights in as some examples, but to the degree it can be pedestrian scaled, low level lighting. I think that'll go far towards being a good neighbor, because what the people on North Hill Avenue now see is a dark treed hillside, and a 3-story building will probably be somewhat visible to that neighborhood in some way with the lights on in the evenings and things. But if the site lighting is done more in the scale of the 12-foot poles instead of the larger elements that you pointed out as existing that are broken, I think that will help really keep the lighting on site and serviceable and have less of an impact as the neighbors look up the hill. And those are really my comments. I don't, I think as you advance, you'll know more about what you're doing, exactly where. I thought the idea for community gardens might be nice because there are going to be 43, community residents that aren't part of CRC. So they would certainly enjoy that amenity somewhere on site for at least some of them. I mean, everybody's a crazy gardener these days, so.
There are so many good options for them too. So I think we'll
Yeah.
have a lot of fun detailing that as we move forward.
Yeah, that's actually North Hill there's a hiking trail that goes straight up, and that's before we go hiking every summer, I spend a couple of weeks doing a little workout where I go up and down that hill like 3 times. So so trying to get in shape for it, but so they're good neighbors, and CRC has always been a good neighbor in Dwight School. And I was on the community preservation committee when we funded some of their smaller projects around town. So,
Thank you.
and so are there any other questions or comments from the board?
So I have one that I thought of after I stopped. Even though I'm not really looking for this presentation a second time, I would recommend possibly, if it's not on your radar already, to reach out to the co-chairs of the Commission on Disabilities as well to discuss this, just because they're very much an interested group in this, as you can imagine. And so I just wanted to make that suggestion too.
Thank you.
Right, so I don't know that I think, again, it's a well-designed project and we like the concept, and I think the direction that you've described in sort of the lighting, the site planning, all look good. So you can incorporate whatever degree of information we've given you that might be helpful, and we look forward to seeing you, I guess, in the fall at some point.
Thank you very much.
That's great.
Appreciate
Thank you.
your time.
And
Thank
we
you
appreciate-
for including us.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming early so that we can, if there were issues, we could start working on them and figure them out, rather than you've already got funding and now you've got a deadline and you got to apply in the ZBA's meeting in 2 weeks, and we can't really say, well, maybe you should change that roof line or something. So we really appreciate you coming in early.
Of course. Of
and
course, thank
going
you.
forward.
All right. Have a good night, then we'll sign off, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay. I thought there was an extra attendee for a while, but they maybe had left. Looked like there were more people than pictures. So the next item on the agenda is the minutes of June 2nd. Let me get down to them. Sorry, got to zoom back out here. And we were all there, so that's great. Any questions or corrections to the minutes of June 2nd?
Not from me.
Okay,
No.
So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2025.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
And we come to the vote. Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Felix,
Yes.
and I'm yes. So that look good. And any other business or questions or comments this time? All right, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.
I will second the motion.
And we come to the vote. Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Felix,
Yes. Sorry, I didn't want to unmute.
that's okay. And I am yes also. All right. So that was good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.